welcome back. As summer is nearing, I have all sorts of camping and hiking and road tripping plans coming up. So with that, I've been getting gear like crazy, and before I actually do those trips, I need to test out this gear. So I booked a campsite at Grayland State Park, which is on the southwest coast of Washington. I've lived in Washington for 5 years, and I've been sleeping on the beaches of southwest Washington. There's just so much to do and see, and also getting to drive on the beach is pretty damn cool. So I had no problem filling up the day and a half that I spent out there, and I can't wait to show you. So here you go, enjoy. Grayland Beach is roughly a 3-hour drive from Seattle, taking you through Tacoma and Olympia, and then over through Aberdeen. The state park is pretty big, with multiple areas where you can reserve campsites or even yurts. One thing that's really impressive with these campsites is that they're set up in a way that gives most sites a fair amount of privacy, especially for a campground. There's a trail from the campsite that goes through the brush and onto the beach.
And they say if you want to glimpse the future, you need space. And you said you'll put down your morning gowns. Would you follow me to wander? Take my hand and walk beside me. Find it hard to not give in. So the days became weeks, it felt just like the night before. You were slowly fading in my mind. I was so completely gone, but now I'm sure.
As we got closer to the water, we had discovered we'd have nearly this entire portion of beach to ourselves, aside from a few trucks rolling through. It wasn't exactly beach weather, but the foggy, overcast weather was still perfect for strolling along and letting the pups burn some energy. my campsite, I started setting up the car for sleeping in. I bought this tailgate tent, and this was my first trip trying it out. My biggest concern of leaving the trunk open was that the car battery would run out. I found this trick online where you push a carabiner through the latch to lock it. So I did that and crossed my fingers that it would work. So stay tuned for me packing up to see if it did. The tent itself was pretty straightforward. There was an initial period of having no clue how to get it on, but it didn't take long to find some tricks to make it go more smoothly. Like putting the pole through the center before strapping it in each end. And then putting the tent on while the tailgate was down. And then popping it up after the tent was strapped on. While the tailgate is down, the tent slid on pretty easily. The construction of the tent is pretty solid. There's a huge range of vehicles it claims to fit on, including a lot of very large SUVs. My Crosstrek is pretty small in comparison, so I was worried it would be too big. But the tent has some really solid elastic that stretched and fitted to my car pretty effortlessly. For sleeping, my setup is pretty simple. I lay a waterproof blanket down to catch any sand and dirt the dogs drag in. I have a sleeping pad, a mummy-style sleeping bag with armholes. All are easily washable and packable. I also recently got this roof net to easily store and access stuff while driving or sleeping. And as a final touch, I strung up these fairy lights that plug into any USB. Is it even a camping trip if you don't forget something? Turns out I had forgotten one very essential ingredient to my dinner. I was planning on making an orzo pasta with tomato, wine sauce, and veggies, but I forgot the orzo pasta, so this ended up being more of a soup. Even though this wasn't exactly the meal I had planned, it was still plenty filling and still had all the flavors I'd intended. So it actually still turned out pretty good. At this point, it was starting to get dark, so it was perfect timing to start a fire. After my bundle burned out, I hopped into the car, turned on the string lights, and read myself to sleep. Even though the campsite is not on the actual beach, I still fell asleep and woke up to the distant sounds of the ocean. To wake myself up, I French pressed some coffee and sipped it as I walked back to the beach. It was even grayer and gloomier this morning, giving total privacy again. I found a bunch of logs near the water and sat down and read while the pups ran around. After I finished my coffee, I headed back to start making breakfast. I'd only planned on making pancakes, which cooked pretty quickly, so that was a perfect reason to test out the new camp stove. Much like the night before, I realized I forgot an essential ingredient for the pancakes: the syrup. So I improvised adding flavor by mixing hot cocoa and the rest of my French pressed coffee into what I'm now calling my mocha pancakes. Which turned out to be another successful experiment. A second round of coffee was necessary before packing up the car. This time I made a Vietnamese coffee complete with the condensed milk. Now was the moment of truth. Would my car start, or would the battery be dead? I was feeling pretty good since there weren't any lights on the entire time the trunk was open. But I went to go start the car and it just rolled over. I'm still not totally sure what killed the battery, but fortunately I bought a power bank a while ago that also had jumper cables. So I unintentionally got to test another item of gear. And thank God this one worked. After the car was packed up, I headed to the nearest beach access on Cranberry Road. While it may not have been great beach weather, it was perfect weather for driving on the beach. This was now my second time driving on the beach, and I'm fully addicted. I can't believe it took me nearly 5 years of living in Washington to discover this gem. Westport is a gorgeous coastal town close to Grayland Beach. I decided to swing in briefly to grab some lunch at their brewery. On my way out of town, I also stopped at an incredible winery and distillery. This place is huge, offering a massive variety of wines and spirits. What really makes this winery stand out are the acres of gardens and art surrounding the grounds. I would say that was a pretty successful overnight to test out all my new gear while getting to explore a new area of Washington. I'm still shocked by how much the state has to offer, and I feel like I've only skimmed the surface. Anyway, all this gear testing is in preparation for some road trips I have coming up this summer, so hang tight for that, and until then, you can like, subscribe, do all the things, and I'll see you next week. Bye.